There's a strange kind of tension that happens when two people are attracted to each other, and both are trying very hard to make sure the other person never finds out. It doesn't always look romantic. Sometimes it looks like distance, a little too much distance. She sees you walk into the room, notices you immediately, and then suddenly becomes very interested in her phone. You look over a few seconds later, and she's already looking somewhere else. You tell yourself it means nothing. Maybe it does. But then you notice she remembers something you mentioned 3 weeks ago. She laughs a little differently when you say something. She seems completely comfortable around everyone else, yet strangely careful around you. And now you're wondering, am I imagining this? That question can stay in a man's head for an embarrassingly long time, because when attraction is obvious, it's actually easier. You can respond to it. You can take a chance. You can accept rejection if it happens. But hidden attraction? That creates ambiguity. And ambiguity has a way of making the mind replay tiny moments over and over. If you've ever found yourself lying in bed thinking about the way she looked at you for 2 seconds longer than usual, you know what I mean. You remember the conversation, the pause, the smile, the moment she almost said something and changed her mind. And then you start building a case in your head. But there's something important here. Sometimes people hide attraction because they're afraid of what admitting it would change. Maybe she doesn't know how you feel. Maybe you don't know how she feels. Maybe one of you is afraid of rejection, or embarrassment, or losing a friendship, or discovering that the feeling isn't mutual after all. So instead of moving closer, both people become slightly more careful. And that's where things get interesting, because attraction doesn't always disappear when it's hidden. Sometimes the opposite happens. The feeling becomes more noticeable because it has nowhere to go. You may become unusually aware of her presence. You notice when she enters a room. You notice when she leaves. You hear her voice from across the room without meaning to. And she may be experiencing her own version of that. Not necessarily in the same way, not necessarily to the same degree. But often when someone is trying to manage a feeling rather than express it, their behavior becomes a little less natural. They may talk too much, or barely talk at all. They may tease you and then suddenly become serious. They may avoid eye contact and then catch your eyes when they think you aren't looking. And sometimes the most revealing moment isn't when someone comes closer. It's when they suddenly pull away. You say something ordinary. She smiles. There's a quiet second between you, and then she changes the subject. You feel the shift. You don't know why. So you pretend you didn't notice. She does the same, and both of you walk away carrying something neither of you said. If that sounds familiar, there's a reason those moments can feel almost impossible to forget. Because underneath attraction, there is often another emotion hiding. Fear. And not just fear of rejection. Sometimes it's the fear of being seen. Because if she knows you want her, she has to respond to that reality. And if you know she wants you, then suddenly you have to decide what you're going to do with that knowledge. And that is where hidden attraction can become much more complicated than attraction itself. Because eventually, one of you notices something neither person can keep pretending not to notice. The silence between you has started saying more than either of you is willing to say out loud. And once that silence starts carrying meaning, something subtle happens. You become aware of yourself, not just of her, your own behavior. You start wondering whether you looked too interested, whether you smiled too quickly, whether she noticed you looking at her. You send a message, read it 3 times, and then wonder if the period at the end somehow sounded cold. You delete a sentence, write another, put your phone down, pick it up again. Nothing has actually happened, and yet, emotionally, something has. This is one of the strange things about attraction that people don't talk about enough. When you don't know where you stand with someone, your mind starts searching for certainty in very small things. A glance becomes evidence. A delayed reply becomes evidence. A joke becomes evidence. Even silence becomes evidence. But silence is especially dangerous because it can mean almost anything. She might be nervous, she might be distracted, she might be protecting herself. She might not feel the same way at all. You simply don't know, and that's uncomfortable, especially for someone who has learned to stay composed. A man can handle a clear answer more easily than he sometimes realizes. I like you. Or, I don't feel that way. There is pain in the second one, obviously. But there is also relief. Because uncertainty keeps the emotional door half open, and half-open doors are exhausting. Imagine sitting across from her somewhere ordinary. Coffee, a restaurant, a workplace break room, nothing dramatic. She's talking about her day and you're listening. At some point she looks directly at you. You both stop for just a moment. Neither of you says anything. Then she smiles and continues talking. That little pause might mean something. It might mean nothing. But if there is already attraction underneath the surface, your nervous system doesn't experience that moment as neutral. You feel it. And sometimes she does too. This is where people can accidentally create what feels like a strange push and pull. One person gets close, the other gets nervous and pulls back. Then the first person senses the distance and protects himself by becoming colder. Now the second person notices his distance and wonders if he lost interest, so she pulls back too. And suddenly, two people who may actually care about each other are behaving as though they don't. Not because either one is playing a game, because both are trying not to get hurt. That distinction matters. We sometimes describe emotional distance as if it's always calculated, as if someone is sitting there thinking, how can I make him chase me? Real life is often much less deliberate. People get scared, people overthink, people protect their pride, people avoid situations where they might feel exposed, and sometimes a person who seems disinterested is actually trying very hard not to reveal how interested they are. But please be careful with that idea. Not every distant person is secretly attracted. Sometimes distance really is distance. The difference is found over time, not in one mysterious glance. Look for consistency. Does she repeatedly find reasons to engage with you? Does she remember details? Does she seem to make space for you? Does the warmth appear again and again, even after moments of hesitation? Or are you carrying the entire emotional story yourself? That last question can be uncomfortable, because attraction can make us notice what we hope is there. And when you desperately want an answer, almost anything can start looking like one. So maybe the healthier question isn't, does she secretly like me? Maybe it's, what happens between us when neither of us is trying so hard to control what the other person thinks? Because underneath all the glances, pauses, messages, and moments of distance, there is usually a much deeper struggle happening. Two people trying to protect their self-worth while quietly wondering whether they are safe enough to be honest. And if you've ever been afraid to show someone how much you care, you may recognize the next part immediately. Because sometimes the person hiding the attraction isn't trying to hide the feeling from you. They're trying to hide it from themselves. That's the part people often miss. Sometimes you don't hide attraction because you don't want the other person to know. You hide it because knowing it yourself feels dangerous. Because once you admit, even privately, I really like this person, you lose a little bit of emotional control. Now their attention matters. Their silence matters. Their opinion matters. And suddenly, something that used to be casual isn't casual anymore. Maybe you've noticed this in yourself. You can talk to almost anyone without thinking about it. But with her, you rehearse. You become strangely aware of your hands, your voice, where you're looking. You think about what you said 5 minutes after you said it. And then later that night, you remember one completely ordinary sentence she said and wonder why it stayed with you. That's often what emotional vulnerability feels like before we call it vulnerability. It feels like losing your footing. And if you've spent years becoming independent, composed, self-sufficient, you may not enjoy that feeling. So you manage it. You become less available. You don't text first. You wait longer before responding. You tell yourself you're giving her space. Maybe you are. But sometimes you're also trying to convince yourself that you don't care, and she may be doing something remarkably similar. This is where attraction can become almost paradoxical. The more meaningful the connection feels, the more carefully someone may behave. Not always, but often enough that it's worth noticing. Think about two people sitting in a car after spending the evening together. The conversation has ended. Neither person gets out. The engine is off. There's a quietness now that wasn't there 10 minutes ago. He looks at her. She looks back. For a second, there is no ambiguity. Not really. They both feel the change in the atmosphere, and then one of them laughs, a little too quickly. "Well, I should probably go." The moment disappears. The door opens. "Good night." And on the drive home, both people may tell themselves the same story. Probably for the best. But that's not necessarily what either person wanted. Sometimes emotional self-protection looks incredibly reasonable from the outside. You can explain it beautifully. "The timing isn't right. We're better off as friends. I don't want to complicate things." And sometimes those reasons are completely valid, but sometimes they're also covering something more vulnerable. "I don't know what happens if I let you see how much I want this." That's a very different sentence. Because attraction isn't only about wanting closeness, it's also about the possibility of rejection, and rejection can touch something deeper than romance. For some people, it quietly raises an old question: am I enough? Not because rejection proves that you're not. It doesn't. People can care about each other and still not be able to build a relationship. Timing can be wrong, values can differ, life circumstances can make something impossible. Feelings can simply be unequal, but emotionally, rejection can still feel like a verdict. And that's why some people would rather live with uncertainty than risk an answer. They would rather wonder for 6 months than hear one sentence that closes the door, so they stay in the middle, close enough to feel something, far enough to remain protected. And from there, something else can develop. Longing. Not the dramatic kind, the quiet kind. The kind that appears when you're driving home and suddenly think, "She would have liked this." The kind that makes you reach for your phone before remembering you don't actually have anything to say. The kind that makes ordinary places feel strangely important because someone was there with you once. And here's where it gets painful. Sometimes two people can genuinely feel something for each other and still spend months protecting themselves from the very connection they both want. Until eventually, one of them gets tired of guessing. Not necessarily tired of the other person, tired of not knowing. And when that happens, the next move is rarely dramatic. It's usually very small. A little more honesty. A little less performance. One sentence that isn't carefully designed to protect the ego. And sometimes that one sentence changes everything. Because the moment one person stops hiding, the other person has to decide whether they're going to keep hiding too. And this is where things can become surprisingly quiet. You might expect honesty to look dramatic. A confession, a long conversation, someone finally saying everything they've been holding inside. Real life is usually much smaller than that. Sometimes honesty is simply not pretending. You ask her to coffee because you want to see her, not because you invented an excuse, not because you need a favor, not because you want to test whether she cares, just because you want to see her. And when she asks why, you don't rush to make the answer sound casual. Because I enjoy being around you. That's it. No performance, no pressure, no hidden demand for reassurance. And something about that kind of honesty can change the atmosphere between two people. Because now neither person has to spend so much energy decoding the other. Of course, honesty doesn't guarantee that attraction is mutual. That's important. You can be sincere and still hear something you don't want to hear. But there is a strange dignity in allowing reality to become clearer. You stop living entirely inside your interpretation of her behavior. You stop measuring your worth by whether she responds exactly as you hoped. And that can make you calmer, more grounded. Sometimes, paradoxically, more attractive too. Not because honesty is a trick, not because confidence is supposed to make someone chase you, but because there is something different about a person who isn't constantly trying to control the outcome. Think about the difference. One man walks into a room thinking, "Does she like me?" Another walks into the same room thinking, "I like her, I'll see what happens." Those sound almost identical. Emotionally, they're not. The first person has handed his piece over to someone else's reaction. The second has accepted his own feelings without demanding a particular ending. That is a very different kind of confidence. And it doesn't mean becoming cold. It doesn't mean pretending you don't care. Actually, sometimes emotional maturity looks like caring deeply without making the other person responsible for your emotional stability. You can want her. You can hope she wants you. You can feel nervous. You can even be disappointed and still remain yourself. That matters because hidden attraction can create another problem. Idealization. When you don't know someone fully, your mind can fill in the missing pieces. You imagine the relationship, the conversations, the closeness, the way she might understand you. And sometimes you're no longer responding to the person in front of you. You're responding to a possibility. That possibility can feel incredibly powerful, especially when you're lonely, especially when your life has been emotionally quiet for a long time. A few meaningful interactions can suddenly carry enormous weight. You start thinking, maybe this is different, maybe it is, but you don't know yet. And allowing yourself to not know is one of the hardest emotional skills there is, because uncertainty feels like a problem the mind needs to solve. Sometimes it isn't a problem. Sometimes it's simply information you haven't received yet. So you watch, you listen, you notice whether the connection exists outside your imagination. Does she reach toward you too? Does conversation feel mutual? Does she make room for you? Does she seem comfortable becoming known by you rather than only being admired by you? Because attraction can begin with mystery, but a real connection requires reality. And reality is where you discover something much more important than whether someone secretly wants you. You discover whether the two of you can actually meet each other. Not through guessing, not through games, not through carefully engineered distance, but as two imperfect people who are finally willing to be seen. And sometimes when that happens, you realize the thing you've been afraid of wasn't rejection at all. It was vulnerability, because rejection hurts for a while, but being genuinely seen, that can change the way you see yourself. And there is one final question that tends to remain when the guessing finally stops. What if the person you've been waiting for wasn't waiting for a perfect version of you, only a real one? Maybe that's why the moments we remember most aren't always the ones where someone finally says, "I like you." Sometimes it's the moment before. The moment when you realize you don't want to hide anymore. You stop wondering whether every glance means something. You stop trying to read her mind. You stop turning every silence into a test. And you begin to notice something much more important. How do you feel when you're around her? Do you feel like yourself? Can you speak without constantly monitoring your words? Can you disagree? Can you laugh? Can you be quiet without immediately assuming something has gone wrong? Because attraction can pull two people toward each other, but emotional safety is what allows them to stay there. And if two people have been hiding their feelings for a long time, the first honest moment can actually feel strangely ordinary. Maybe you're walking together. Maybe you're saying goodbye. Maybe she looks at you and says something simple like, I always feel like there's something we're not saying. And suddenly, everything gets quiet. You could make a joke, change the subject, pretend you didn't understand. You've probably done that before, but this time you don't. You take a breath, and maybe you say, "I've wondered about that too." That's not a grand declaration, but it changes the relationship. Because now the two of you are standing in the same reality. Whatever happens next, you're no longer alone inside the question. And maybe she feels the same way. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe she needs time. Maybe the circumstances aren't right. Maybe what you thought was attraction was something else. All of those possibilities are part of being human. But there is something deeply valuable about finding out. Because when you spend too long hiding what you feel, you can accidentally start hiding from yourself. You become very skilled at looking unaffected. You become skilled at saying it's nothing. You become skilled at walking away before anyone has the chance to disappoint you. And after a while, that can look like confidence. But confidence isn't the absence of vulnerability. Sometimes it's the ability to tolerate vulnerability without abandoning yourself. That's a quieter strength. You can say, "I care about you." You can say, "I'd like to spend more time with you." You can say, "I'm not sure where this goes, but I'd rather be honest than keep guessing." And then you let the other person answer. That's the part people sometimes forget. Honesty isn't a way to control someone else's feelings. It's a way of becoming honest with your own. And if she reaches toward you too, then something beautiful can happen. Not because you've discovered some secret formula about women, not because you finally learned how to make someone attracted to you, but because two people stopped protecting themselves long enough to find out what was actually there. And if she doesn't, you may hurt, you may replay the conversation, you may wonder what you could have done differently, but eventually there can be relief in knowing. Because there is a particular kind of loneliness that comes from being close to someone while never allowing yourself to be known. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't getting the person you want. It's allowing reality to be real. So if you're sitting there thinking about someone right now, maybe don't ask yourself, does she secretly like me? Ask something more honest. Have I given this connection any chance to exist outside of my imagination? Because sometimes two people are waiting for each other to make the first move, and sometimes only one person is waiting. You don't know which situation you're in until someone is willing to step out of the fog. And perhaps that's the part nobody tells you. The goal isn't to become so confident that rejection can't hurt you. The goal is to become secure enough that you can survive the truth. If she wants you, you can meet her there. If she doesn't, you can let her go without deciding that it means something is wrong with you. And if both of you have been hiding because you're afraid of what might happen, maybe the next moment doesn't need to be dramatic. Maybe it only needs to be honest. Because sometimes the connection you've spent months trying to decode was never asking you to become more impressive. It was asking you to become more real. And somewhere between the glance you almost returned, the message you almost sent, and the words you almost said, there may be a version of your life waiting for one simple thing, for someone to finally stop pretending they don't care.